Right, welcome everyone to Business Club. We're here with Mike Pacitto of Market Pie. Mike Pacitto is the CEO of Market Pie. His mission is to grow the pie for everyone because when small businesses are thriving, communities are thriving. He started as an entrepreneur, helping to launch his family's newspaper business, and then he ran a successful wedding photography business with his wife. Now has a 5-person team helping him with small businesses grow. Now, Michael is also doing, with Market Pie, they're also doing a promotion right now. You can win up to $31,415.92. Very specific, you know, it's that extra 92 cents that makes a difference. It's a massive marketing makeover. A marketing agency is growing and want you to grow with us. So
it's a pie joke, by the way. There's a talking about the complicated messaging.
Okay, that's clever. Yeah, the pie number. All right. So that's it's a draw that Mike's having, and you could find out more information at marketpie.ca. So really looking forward to our conversation today. Mike, we're talking about market scams, and we're going to divide this up into sort of 3 sections. First, we're going to talk about fake gurus, or as my mentor calls Fugazis, and those are the kind of the baller gurus. Then we're going to talk a bit about more specific, scams that are out there, and Mike and I actually have a different opinion about network marketing, so we might have a little debate about network marketing. And
Friendly
then,
one.
We're gonna finish off with just some strategies of how, if you get yourself caught in the scam, how to exit that. And we'll also be open to, if anyone else joins in, wants to provide some questions, comments. They're certainly more than welcome to do so, I know we have Drew on the line, and we may have some others join us as well. So welcome, Mike. Good to see you again. Last time we were doing the Zoom, we're doing the Adapt and Overcome e-conference, where you were my co-host there. And so great to have you join us this morning.
Well, thanks so much, Paul. I really appreciate you having me by.
Excellent. So Mike, why don't you start us off? I know you've done some research on fake gurus, so why don't you tell us what that's all about?
Yeah, so this was something I've just been kind of interested in as a marketer, which is anytime I see some advertising or marketing online, my first instinct is to click on the ad. Now, most people like to click away from the ads and are trying to ignore them. Well, it's me. I want to understand the marketing that's going on. I want to look at the messaging and start dissecting it. And what I've really noticed really quickly, and I'm sure many other business owners notice as well, is that there is a lot of advertising and there's a lot of really enticing messaging. There's a lot of people that are saying some really powerful things that you resonate with. They're things about life and business and mindset. And I think all that stuff is really good. However, when you start to actually go down some of these rabbit holes and you start actually looking at the webinars that you get on, and you start looking at the actual sales tactics that are being used, what you find really quickly is that there's a lot of really high pressure and really specific psychological pressure that's put on people. And when you start, and the more you learn about psychology, you start realizing that these people are really putting you at a disadvantage. They first get you to believe and trust their authority. So a lot of them are going to very subtly show their wealth, that they're the #1 coach in this, and they're the most successful person at that, and that they have this big following around them. And once you've bought into the mindset, then a lot of times your defenses are down. And at the end of these webinars is super high pressure sales tactics, but with all of your objections already pre-broken down. And some of them get very deceptive. I saw so many of them where they convince people who don't have any money to take out credit cards, to take out loans, to ask friends or family to pay for these $3,000, $5,000 courses. And as a marketer, I started going, this is insane, because these courses are not actually, these aren't one-on-one courses. This isn't someone spending their time on it. This is just a pre-set up automatic course, and you just get put through the system. And when I started asking myself, well, what's the problem with that? There's a lot of people that, you know, it's a good value. Maybe they have a good system and it's going to help many people do well in business. The problem that I think anyone can agree with is that if you're in business, you take responsibility as much as you can for your customer's success. And if you start to, if any business here had a success rate of your students that was lower than 10%. So if only 10% of the clients that I worked with were successful, I would feel really bad about that. And I would feel that I'm taking advantage of a lot of people, especially if I'm just kind of selling them something and putting all of the onus on them. And when you start looking into these courses and you start looking at the actual feedback, not just the ones that they show in the testimonials, which a lot of those are also fake, by the way, you start getting this picture of a lot of fake authority and fake, you know, wealth being shown, a lot of fake followers being done, to promises that are not kept, and over 90% of people losing money severely. And of the people who do make it is a very small percentage. So before I go too much on a rant, that was the summation of my research is that successful people aren't buying these courses. Desperate people who don't have money, who need something to work. And a lot of these courses and gurus are preying on those people, and they're okay with that. And to me, I don't find that very fair.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Now I have a mentor who's very successful, who's multimillionaire, JT Fox, and it was interesting, you know, to hear his perspective on this, because there are different types of what you call gurus out there, or, you know, very successful, you know, millionaires who are giving presentations or running programs. And there's a difference, though, I would say, between those who are adding value and actually they are actual business coaches. Like they've been very successful, whether it be in real estate investing or in as a public speaker, as a business coach. And at their seminars, they actually are providing a lot of value, a lot of coaching, a lot of marketing strategies, sales strategies, mindset strategies that actually work. But there's another kind of, which I'd call the fake gurus, or the Fugazis, who are, you know, they'll have pictures next to their Lamborghinis or their Ferraris or their private jets, like obviously very extremely successful, but they don't really provide the value there that, you know, you listen to them talk and they'll go on, it's like I call it verbal diarrhea, right? You know, there might be something that's kind of interesting about what they're saying, like, you know, that how you can be really successful, but there's not really any meat there. There's not really any value. It's just like verbal diarrhea. They may have, you know, they'll use like the Think and Grow Rich as inspiration for, and then create their own kind of made up strategy, but they won't really stick to the core essence of Think and Grow Rich. They'll go off on, and it's just like verbal diarrhea. And the events are more about like bringing in celebrity guests, you know, playing, you know, loud, you know, music, flashy lights, and all this, and then interviewing. But there's not really the value there, which is, okay, what do I need to run a successful business? What, you know, sales and marketing skills, what mindset strategies. It's more like, and as you said, and I agree with that they prey on the vulnerable. Maybe that someone's had to like put this on their credit card, put themselves in $3,000 or $5,000 in debt to attend this big event, and yes, they may be also, you know, and it's a business, right? So we know that there's the pressure to then buy into the course and everything like that. But I think what my issue is more of like what the essence of what this person is teaching, and if it has actual like value, if it's staying true to the Think and Grow Rich principles, or is it all this verbal diarrhea on, like, you know, and then you listen to a talk, and it's just like they go on, and like, you know, there might be like a couple, they have like 3 good points, but they just go on and start talking about what they did like on the weekend, or their trip they had, or all the, you know, the crap that they own and all this, and not really get to the, you know, something that's actually adding value to help someone like run a successful business. So that's where I see like the fake gurus, the Fugazis out there. And one thing with my mentor is an interesting discussion is that those who are just like the ballers, the Fugazis are not surviving this pandemic that we're in, because now you're kind of seeing like this, it separates those who are adding value with those that are just like Fugazis, that they're just the ballers, and they don't really have any value to add, because now people are in a situation where they are being careful with how they're spending their money, and they're not going to be wasting on something that's not going to be adding value.
Yeah, well, one thing I challenge on, and this is the first misconception that I found, was one of them is that a lot of these, and I think there's levels of kind of fraudsters, right? Because there's outright scams, which is just they promise nothing, they promise everything, and they actually deliver zero things. And I think that one, everyone can agree that's a scam, right? But then you start getting into maybe those low level guys that you're talking about, the Fugazis, those guys that are, pretty obviously they're maybe selling you some sort of a product, but there's really no value there at all. And this is only the worst, only the people who are most desperate and most susceptible to these are going to fall for that. But then the area that I've been really getting into is the people that have gotten fairly good at giving value and playing the game of legitimacy, and are really in that gray area where, they're very well known. They have a lot of authority. A lot of people look up to them and have gotten benefits from them. But for me, what I'm always looking at is, what is the majority? What is the normal outcome of them? What is the effect that this person has on their business? And are they actually helping just a couple people be really successful, or is it the majority? So one of them I think a lot of people might have heard because of the conspiracy theories. There's something called London Real. Are you familiar with London Real at all?
No, never heard of them.
Right. Have you seen the thing? It's, who David Icke is,
No.
the really crazy guy, believes in lizard people. Well, there's this big conspiracy going on with David Icke, and he's a really well-known conspiracy theorist. And I don't want to get into too much of that, but the person who gave him the platform was this guy named Brian Rose with London Real. And he's this, multimillionaire banker type person, supposedly multimillionaire. And he runs a really successful coaching system. And a lot of people, he's influenced a lot of people. A lot of his free content is really, really interesting. And I've listened to a lot of it. I'm like, wow, this is some really cool stuff. But then what ended up happening is he started when he was getting deplatformed for hosting, a lot of, because he's a big free speech advocate, and which I agree with too. I'm definitely anti-censorship. Then he started raising money. He was raising $100,000, and then he easily broke that record. And then all of a sudden he started asking for $1 million, saying, hey, we gotta get freedom out there, and, we need to raise $1 million. And then it upgraded. Once he raised $1 million, all of a sudden he's starting to raise $4 million. He needed $4 million to keep this new freedom thing going. And the funny thing is that if he's this really super rich millionaire, and he says in his own words, I can make $3,000, I could sell $33,000 courses, this month, which I did. So I don't need the money. But then it's like, well, why does he need people? Like, if he really wants to help people, why isn't he giving this away? Like, why isn't he funding these things? If he's really trying to get people out of these financial hardships, why does he need to charge them $3,000? Why is he not just making his millions using the advice that he's learned to be rich? And why does he have to make most of his money off of, people, again, who are very vulnerable? So again, when you're looking at these people, yeah, there's some people that get help and they feel good about it. But when you look at the big picture and you ask, well, how many people are actually benefiting? That's how I tell, because if 10% of people are doing really well with them, to me, that's not a reliable business that I would trust.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about network marketing, because I know that we were having a discussion yesterday. I know we have a bit of a difference of opinion on the subject, and I also have some friends that are in network marketing. So I do see some of the positive aspects, and I know that you're more on the kind of I put in the category of scams, right? In that category. So tell me what's your thoughts on network marketing.
So first off, I want to just say that I don't think we have to be really careful about using the word scam. And we have to also understand the definition of a scam. Now, for me, I don't believe that the definition of a scam is when someone gets sold something and delivered nothing. I mean, that's really clear. Anyone can agree with that. But if that was the only definition of a scam, then I don't think there would be actual any scams, because those a real scam where it's like, hey, buy this product and it'll cure cancer, and then the product doesn't cure cancer. Like, obviously, that's a scam, but that's not going to last. That's not going to be sustainable, right? Pyramid schemes are illegal, and there is no pyramid schemes that really work because of these laws, right? So when we start looking at the definition of a scam, we start to think a little bit bigger and go, well, if someone wants to scam someone and make a pyramid scheme, for instance, what would they have to do? Well, they would need, if the laws against a pyramid scheme is, well, you need to have a product. And okay, so you can have a pyramid scheme structure, but instead of people paying money for nothing, they're paying money for products. And that's why we have to get really particular about it is that a scam is, you're never going to be able to make scams fully illegal, because as soon as you make a rule, someone's going to work at breaking that rule. The second thing that's important is that people in multi-level marketing are not bad people. They're not evil. And I think a lot of the discourse is really negative and accusatory and judgmental. And to me, I don't ever want to go down that route. And so when we're talking about this, we got to be really clear those definitions. And I'm going to go back to what I just said about fake gurus. I think there's a lot of people who have been helped by MLMs. There's a lot of people that have built up a community. But however, when we look at the actual numbers, the statistics, the raw data, and we ask how many people who are pursuing MLMs as a business, not the people who are just buying product, but the actual people who are, what is the percentage of those people that are successful? And if we're looking at success rates of less than 10% and less than 5%, we would all agree that that's probably not very good. And I have some numbers I'd love to share with you if you have something. So anyway, my main point is, if we're talking about a scam, we have to be really clear of the definition, that we're not just talking about an outright scam. We're talking about a system that is legally being legal, but ultimately has a negative net effect on the overall population. And is that something you'd agree with?
Yeah, and I think that's fair enough. And when it comes to multi-level marketing or network marketing, I think there are some very legitimate businesses, some that are people have been successful. And I think the most important thing is to actually look at what ultimately what the product is. So I remember one, and I wish I would have looked this up beforehand, but it was about 10 years ago. It was really popular, and it was based on a product that was used. It was like a Japanese seaweed that they put in, basically something from a Japanese seaweed. They put in a pill, and it claimed like it was like, solved all your ills and helped with your, and they it's interesting. I had a client that was actually getting into this, a young guy, and they would go to events and they would have all this fancy marketing, and they would have like, it's like the Jurassic Park science, right, where it showed these fancy how these the molecule level would be really fancy, and I thought it was just a bit like, so his mom bought his product, and maybe like his two best friends, but it like you see the whole kind of like system, right, that it was like the science of these network marketing. So I think those are the kind of like the baller ones, kind of like there's that category. But then there's the ones that, like, let's say like that people are more familiar with. Let's say, so on the financial services, be like the Primerica, World Financial Group. Then on the business side, like the bigger ones, like would be like Isogenics. There's a new one, Prove It, which is more of a ketosis business. And these are ones actually I know some people in, and I
do as well.
Took the liberty last night to actually find out okay, what's the deal? Like, first of all, are you given the information about what people are making in these business up front? And it turns out that no. So I that's one thing that I think is a bit of a, I don't agree with. Like, I think you should be given that information up front. And then there's, and actually I'm going to ask Drew just in a minute here what his thoughts are, because I know that Drew was working with with Primerica a bit. And And so, but anyway, so the information I gathered last, so my friend of mine who works with, she's with Isogenics.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually over 300 millionaires with Isogenics. So that have been I think it's 323 millionaires and I was asking, okay, so
we need to stop right there for one quick second.
Okay, I just want to mention one more thing. So I was asking, okay, who's making a decent living? So who's making over 40,000 a year? She said about 25%. Okay, who's making over a decent living, like over 65,000 a year? She said about 15%. Okay, who's making over 100,000 a year? She said about 10%. And who's been extremely successful? And there's actually a good video out there that she pointed me out to, but she was saying it's about 6% are extremely successful in the business. So I think in this Isogenics, I think you can be fair that you can say that you can actually be successful and do reasonably successful. There's also the thing that you want to look at, is it something that is building a community that is changing people's lives for the good? So Prove It is another one that I talked to my friend Jennifer about it.
Before we get into talking about all of the, can we start with maybe just one and go from there? Because that's a lot of
go ahead, George. Yeah, so, go ahead.
Because there's a lot of things that we have to unpack there. So first off was the definitions. I'm a definitions guy. I like to be clear, get agreement. So when we say millionaires, these are not people that are millionaires. These are people that have made $1 million in commissions over the lifetime of their business. And the average, as according to on their site, is the average years it takes to make 1 million in sales is about 8 point something, right? So when we say there's 250 millionaires worldwide, we have to be very specific that there's 250 people who have made $1 million in commissions. Divide that over the average lifespan of 8 years, and there's 250 people who have made about 100,000 a year on average and there's some people that took longer to get there and shorter. So when they say millionaires, they don't actually mean millionaires as in they have millions of dollars. They've just made $1 million.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're earning millions of commission each year, but yeah.
But this is important, right? Because when people hear these statistics, they go, "Oh, there's 250 millionaires." It's like this is the top of the top, like the cream of the crop, right? And right away, we already have a little bit of like funny business going on where it's like, well, they're not millionaires. They're even the top people are not multi-millionaires. So anyway, I just want to start there. So the second thing I want to go over is some of the statistics of 25% and that. And so I'm going to go off of their website. And this is from 2017 numbers. So you might have to add 10% to everything I'm saying. So according to their website, which is a public document, only 23% of all of their consultants are actually trying to make money that have signed up for their program to actually make commissions, right? So let's be fair and only use those people. And on their site is that they have about 14,000 people who are actually making commissions. 95% or 13,300 people made less than $7,415 in a year. And that's staggering. So first off, we're looking at 95% of people made less than 7,000 in yearly commissions. And any business owner then goes, hey, minus your expenses and minus your, going to these product seminars. And then if you minus the products you're buying, now, yes, you get food and that's offsetting your food bill. But already we're looking at, I'm not sure where she's getting these numbers from. And it gets even worse when we look at 1% of people, according to their numbers, which is 140 people, made more than $38,000 before expenses. So we're looking at 99% of people did not make a full-time living off of Isogenics. And we don't need to talk about the products. We don't need to talk about anything else other than that one number. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So actually I do have some thoughts on that. So I talked to one of my other friends and I was just mentioning there's another business, Prove It. It's a ketosis business. And we had a good conversation because I think it's important to realize though, that you mentioned, a business owner, but there's a lot of people doing this business. It's not actually their main business. And my friend, it's not her main business either. It's actually a part-time business to help supplement their income. And so this is something that's actually helping her buy groceries, buy, milk and do buy some extracurricular activities to sign up for kids and stuff like that. So it's not really, it's actually not their main business. It's actually a part-time.
So that's a great
thing
point.
that they're doing. So it's helped also, like they like the community aspect of it too. So it's bringing people together based on something that they really believe in. So a product or
so we got to, can we stop there again? Cause that's another important, and that's a great point that you brought up. However, if we look at that 95% of people that only made $7,000 in commissions, they spent, in Isagenix, you have to spend a certain amount of money every month to be qualified for that. So everyone that's in that 95% is also spending money on the products themselves. And if you just take out just that, and you're probably spending at least $300 to $400 a month on Isagenix products. If you just take that out, these people are not making money from this, really. They're still losing money. And again, 95%, that's up to the highest person in that 95% is making 7,000. So everyone else in that 95% is making less. So if you need extra income, a part-time job will guarantee you, and it'll be a lot less work, because you remember, these people are always there. You're recruiting people. You got to go to all these, you got to get training. You got to go to seminars. You got to be promoting this. You need to be, winning over people into the Isagenix membership. And that's a lot of work, a free work that you're doing for everyone above you, and you're not making any money. So I just want to make sure, if we're saying extra income and we want to be objective, like if I said, hey, Paul, would you like to make $7,000 extra a year? And here's the amount of work that you have to do. And again, we're talking about the top 5% of people in Isagenix. So the top 5 hardest working people, like that person is making $7,000 a year by their numbers. Again, if maybe their numbers are off, but so would you agree that 7,000, is that actually like extra spending money if you're running a marketing, if you're in the top 5% of networkers?
Yeah. So fair enough. It's, I think it's fair to say that the majority of people aren't successful in multi-level marketing because they give up after, let's say, 6 months or a year. And maybe they only sell the product.
By the way, that's even bigger.
They only sell their product to, like, maybe their mom or their friend or whatever. So the majority, yeah, it's fair enough to say the majority of people, but that's the same in sales or same in business. The same thing. It's like,
it's
majority
not
of people, like 50% don't last the first year, and then 80% don't last. It's the majority of people, but it is an opportunity. But I mean, just on the other side of the coin, though, it is an opportunity because this is been their first opportunity to actually run a business. So they get to, delve into sales and marketing and get involved with the community. And it's something they really believe in. And I don't see anything, harm. It's a, little part-time extra. But yeah, I agree that the majority of people aren't successful in it. And on the financial side, and maybe, this is, I don't know if Drew
but that's
has
another
anything
important thing, though.
I'm just going to say, though, like,
really
on
like
the financial side, it's also an opportunity that they can learn a little bit. They learn about investments, they learn about insurance, they get to which is important especially for retirement. Maybe this is the first time they've actually started thinking about their own retirement. Like if they're in a ML, like a multi-level marketing on the financial services, that they actually get to learn a little bit about that. And I know another friend of mine who's now attending these like weekly webinars with a group from World Financial Group, and learning a little bit about insurance and retirement and investments and that, and in a new community that seems to really enjoy it. So I think there's other, like, there's intrinsic values as well. It's not just on necessarily the income itself, but there's other aspects to it that can add value to their lives, or they're learning that. But I did want to see if Drew wanted to because Drew would have a little bit more insight, and it might even be on the negative end about what it's like to to get involved with a network marketing on the financial services side of things. So Drew, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you want to add anything?
Well, I'll tell you this one, because yeah, it is true. Like, you definitely like fall out of line if you're not actually into it. like like yes, I was part of Primerica and fell completely right out of it in just the 1 year time span. And I've
And,
gone
yeah.
into quite other ones as well, and it's they promise you so much, and then they give you so little.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I also on the expectation, and that's where I think that there is something wrong is on setting up the expectation. I think there needs to be disclosures. They need, and this is the thing I feel strongly about that. They need anyone going into a network marketing business should be told what the average medium income is, and actually being given examples. So when I started, for example, I started my in the financial services. I started with Investors Group, and they tell you like this is the medium income of all consultants out there, and here are some examples of, here's a cross section of 10 people in the, that work for Investors Group. This is what their income is. And I think that's important, that should be, and my friends that I spoke to weren't provide those disclosures. So that's where I think I find, like, I believe that there's an injustice there. Like
Mhm.
those disclosures should be provided up front. It shouldn't be all like raw. You're going to look at, here's our top 1%. They're making $1 million. I mean, I think that's unfair. That's unrealistic, because that's the baller mentality. I think those disclosures need to be provided up front. So, Mike, I would like to move on, but like, do you have any final thoughts you want to share on the network
Yeah,
network
for sure.
marketing?
Drew, by the way, I appreciate you mentioning, you brought up another point, which is, Drew, you actually left it, right? So the statistics I provided that are objectively 99% of people or 95% of people are losing money, and really 99% of people are not making a living at this. This is only counting the people who are currently part of Isogenics. If you added in every single person that failed and lost money on that, the numbers would go from 99% to 99.9. I don't even know I wouldn't even know how to calculate that, right? So I think that's important to realize, is that also that, yes, it's good. I think giving community and teaching people things is one thing, but the two big differences is that in a multi-level marketing, the people who are encouraging you to get into it are financially benefiting from you, or they're emotionally benefiting from you because they want to believe it. But 99% of people, if not plus, as numbers there, are losing money. Their relationships are being ruined because people like Drew, he got signed on, and your first job in Isogenics especially is to get everyone involved, like tell your friends, tell your family. So would you risk your family relationships, your friend relationships being put in a us versus them mentality for the 0.1% chance that you might make a mediocre living? I
Okay,
think,
so
yeah. So yeah, that's how.
First of all, I don't agree with your statistics there. But like, I think that's, you have to be careful there. But the one
I'll
thing I
show.
will
I
say
can
that,
post the link and share the thing of the
but
from
what,
Isogenics site.
what I will say though is that, to be successful in multi-level marketing, it's not about you selling a product. It's actually you running a team. So those who are very successful, I mean, you're basically running a business. You're the manager of a team, and then your team of, let's say, 10 people that you focus on, you're helping them with their mindset, and you're managing them. And out of your team, it might be that 5 are not successful. They give up after a period of time. You have 3 that are doing okay, like they're making a decent part-time income. But then it's your 2 members of your team that are just rock stars, and they're just hitting the ball out of the park, and they're extremely successful. And that's actually where and then those 2 people then maybe start their own team. So
no, but
let's
that's
be clear,
assuming. But that's assuming that 2 people are rock stars and selling the product. But the statistics, and again, we have to talk about statistics. We don't want to use your opinion versus my opinion. My opinion is useless. But if 99% of people do not make a living at this, then what you're saying is, if you have a team of 10 people, you have 9 people who are losing money and 1 person who loses less money, and you at the top are kind of almost breaking even. Maybe that's the normal statistic. Like, that is the average thing. And I think,
well, I would say the average, I would say the 80-20 rule. So I'd say, 80
but
aren't
it's not
successful,
80.
but 20% are, like, 1 out of 5 are very successful. And
That's
as I
not
said,
true.
you have to, it's the top, it's those who are like running a team. Those are the ones that can be very successful. If you're like a sales manager, it's more like that type of, you're running a business. So and there's a video too, if people want to see what Isogenics is all about. It's by Susan Miller. It's the pen. It's something about a pen. Just Google Susan Miller and a pen, and you'll see. And the people, my friends that are in network marketing are actually like some of the best salespeople I've ever met in terms of like sales ability, sales skills, and being able to start up a conversation through social media and make it happen that way. So I think that the important thing is that not everyone, yeah, it's true that not everyone makes it, but those that are willing to put in the work and the effort and be consistent and have the discipline to do this for 5-10 years can be very successful in the business. But they have to have that discipline, the focus, the work ethic, and they have to be able to run their own team. And those that can do that can be extremely successful. I know actually some millionaires even in Ottawa that run or in Brockville that run like $1 million businesses and multi-level marketing.
And again, that's true. There's people there that can be successful, but for them to be successful, they need 99 people under them that are unsuccessful. And the business model, and if any of those 99 people want to be successful, they need 99 people under them. And that's where the business model falls apart, because you're recruiting your competition. And the only way for the model to be successful is everyone on the planet needs to be an Isogenics member. And that's not going to happen. That's just never, like, the products are very expensive. That's the other thing, if we want to talk products, is that a lot of these products go, like, I like the Isogenics bars, by the way. I think they're great. But when I compare them, these $3-4 bars to a $2 bar on the market that is just as good and just as healthy, you start going, that's another one issue. But I don't want to get too much on that. But the one problem that I find is, and one thing you just mentioned, the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is the Pareto principle is a real kind of rule in life, but that's how we can determine whether something is a scam or not, is because it's breaking the Pareto principle. It's breaking the 80-20 rule, that it's not 80-20, it's 99%. And that's of the active members. If you include people who have not and they've gone out, it's way worse than that. And when people say that businesses fail, I totally get it. But even businesses, even if you take the average of businesses, a lot of them fail, but you would still be better off running your own business. And the success rate, let's talk about success rates. Like 20% of businesses succeed and last past 10 years. Great. Well, in the MLM, you're looking at 99. And again, I believe even higher than that are unsuccessful, lose money. And those two numbers are astronomically different. Like you can't compare that. So when people say the corporate world, like, you will actually, 95% of people will make more money at a part-time job than they will Isogenics. And that's a real statistic that people will dance around and they'll go off in different directions, but those numbers we can't ignore those.
Yeah, I would question your numbers, because I think like it's more like 20% can be
Nope.
successful.
I will share it.
20% earn. It's 20% that earn 80% of the revenue, right? It's the other 80% that aren't successful. But I would like to move, Mike, to just get to another aspect and more like the broader market scams. So these would be things like, for example, the CRA or IRS scams, where you get the calls from India and they're asking you to, hey, you owe money. And these are the ones that there's a lot of victims in Canada and the US that are falling prey to this. And there's also a lot of membership organizations out there. That's actually what inspired me for the call today, is I joined a membership and then I had to got in a situation where it's like hindsight is 2020. I decided I wanted to get out of that membership, but I sent an email and there's no clear direction on the website on how to do that. So wanted to talk about strategies of how to, if you get caught in a scam, strategies to get out of them. So do you want to share anything on that matter?
Yeah. So if somebody's in what they think, and they think they've gone into what they call into scam kind of territory, the first thing you got to understand is that the people around you are not well, if you're talking Indian scams, you're talking about, sorry, the more like the phone scam kind of side?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a variety of scams out there. The one I was going to give an example of too was a membership. So I got into this membership. I want to cancel it. I knew this was going to happen. So a year later, after I joined it, because I canceled it maybe let's say 4 months in, I canceled. I knew this was to happen. A year later, I got dinged another. It was like $300, $299 or something like that. So I knew this was going to happen anyway. So what I did was, there's one of two ways, and I've done this before too, where you can either troll them on social media. So you pressure them to say this business is a scam. Don't like buy into it. I never got what I paid for. Blah blah blah. So that's one strategy, and I have got refunded after by going to that. And that was actually a couple other businesses I did that. But this one, what I just did, and then because the other thing is that then you have to waste a lot of time and energy doing that. So, but what I did this time was basically just went straight to the Best Business Bureau, and it's like an international organization, and just reported, because they just ignore your messages. You email them, you message them, they just completely ignore that. As soon as I went to the Best Business Bureau, like a week later, like once they got wind of that, full refund right back. Because then what the Best Business Bureau is they'll actually reach out to that company, and they know that, okay, they're in hot water now if they're going to get reported by like an international reputable agency. And then so then I got the refund right away. So that was a strategy there. But one thing I always tell my clients is don't ever give money. So there's so many different scams out there, but as soon as you have to send money somewhere, that's a red flag. So and there's so many out there. There's like I want $10 million. I have $10 million inherited from Nigeria. I have to send to Canada. I need help me do this. There's the ones on, of course, like the romantic ones where someone will try to enamor you like a single lonely person, and I'm at the airport. I just send me this money so I can get paid for my flight or whatever, right? So it's just all made up, and they have all these prearranged letters ahead of time. There's ones like there's shopping mystery shopping scams too, where it's like, okay, you're invited to participate in this to buy these groceries. And just send this money through Western Union. So as soon as you have to send money, that's the red flag. And they even can get really specific too. Like, I was starting a music band, and at one point, and this guy was sort of like, oh yeah, let's do this. We'll help you with the marketing. And then, oh yeah, just, you just have to, put this together. And then at one point it's like, yeah, send money to this, or, so we can do this. So as soon as you have to send money, that's when it's a scam, and that's the red flag. So I always tell my clients, just never send money to anyone, and don't give any of your personal information away. So that could be your especially your banking, your social insurance number, your name, your address, any of that. Especially your banking. So as soon as because there's a lot of fake ones, right? That's like, they pretend they're either your bank, or they pretend they're the Canada Revenue Agency, or in the US, the IRS. And there's because they would never ask you your banking information by phone or email. So that's the most important thing I would say, is don't give any of your personal, your banking information, your SIN information, and never send money. So that's and then if you get caught in a membership scam, that just go to the Best Business Bureau to get things moving forward.
Yeah. One quick thing, I put in a link, Drew, if you want to grab it there, and also for yourself, for the previous, when we were talking about my statistics, it's just a link to the Isogenics site, and specifically there's a percentage. It says the top 10% median of people make 7,415 near the bottom. Anyway, I don't want to get back onto that. I just want to make sure that if you're doubting the statistics, these are statistics straight from their site for 2017. And I haven't found them off the internet or anything. They're what Isogenics puts out there. But what you're talking about there is, it's really important. If you're thinking that you're getting into any kind of marketing venture, the first thing that you need to protect yourself from scams is you need to talk to your friends and family. And the number one thing that scammers do is they isolate you, which is why they target the elderly. It's why they target people who are financially desperate. It's why they target people who are in troubled times, because those are the people that are feeling it. They're scared, and they're more prone to make an emotional decision. So the first thing you need to do is you need to talk to your friends and family. They love you, they care about you. And one of the tactics that a lot of scammers kind of do that I found in my research is they put out advice that is, so they put out objection handling, which is masquerading as advice. So a lot of these scammers, especially ones that call you and all that, what they're going to do is they're going to say statements that sound like general life advice. Like, for instance, if anyone's doubting your dreams, you should probably cut yourself from those haters, right? Like that. In general, I would say that's decent advice. If people are being aggressive and negative to you, that's one thing. However, someone who is trying to make a profit off of you by getting you into their system or to buy a product or whatever, that is actually a way of overcoming objections, because most people, if you tell them like, hey, here's this marketing system I'm going to get into, or here's this product someone called me on the phone to get into, or whatever it is, most of your people, once they're not emotionally attached to the decision, they're going to go, that's a bad idea. Like this, the numbers do not make sense, and they're going to be against it. So you got to be, a lot of times that's what scammers do, is that they get you to agree to things that generally sound like okay advice or good ideas. And then they use that as a weapon to basically to break down your defenses. So when we're talking about the fake gurus, those 2-hour-long seminars are not about advice. The webinars and those seminars are designed to break down all of your objections over time and get you to agree to things, so that when they make this ask for the sale at the end, you're beaten. You're beaten because you've agreed to their premises, you've agreed to their mindset. Compare that, how you can tell someone who's not a scam, a legitimate business, is really simple. They have your best interests at heart, and they're willing to walk away from the deal. If something is good for everybody, that never exists in life. So if it's a marketing system, not everyone is going to be in business. Not everyone's going to be successful. I would never tell someone to get into business. It's hard. It's stressful. There's a lot of risk. And some people are just not meant to be an entrepreneur. Contrast that with the general marketing thing, which is anybody can be if they just work hard enough, if they just dedicate themselves and they put in the time and they put in the effort. And that's not true. The numbers prove it. And someone who's going to give you that advice is bad. Like you as a financial planner, if you convince your clients and said, you know what, this has this is a chance, a low success rate, I think you should do it. That's not good. And the same with the phone scammers. What they rely on is you catching a desperate person at a vulnerable time. Actually, it's funny. Have you ever seen one of those scams that just sounds so ridiculous, no one should ever fall for it? Like, and you think to your head, no one will ever fall for this. Have you seen any of those?
Well, I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I was just going to share one is interesting with those the Indian phone scams. So I recently saw there was a guy, he's prank calling like a phone manager phone in India, and they were saying, yeah, we make $2,000 to $3,000 a month, and we bring home like $700 a day US, and or $700, and so it would be working to about 140,000, and these guys, like in India, like for example, what we're equivalent to what we make in Canada would be like India, they make about like 1/15. So if you make 10,000 in Canada, that's like 150,000 rupees, or Indian currency. So not only it's just such a huge disparity that these guys, like for them, it's like a huge windfall to what they're making, to what these. So it's worth them to take this risk and to be scams and to be like pieces of shit. That's what they referred to on the thing. So, but you wonder, like, because it's like it's just the stress that's brought to many people in North America lives, like thinking that they're in trouble with the CRA or the IRS, and then panicking and like putting stuff on their credit card, or thinking that they owe all this money. Like you almost wonder if they should institute capital punishment for these scammers in India, because it's really just they're making the world the worst place by being around. But anyway, that's controversial. But I'll leave that to the listeners to decide on what they think. But hopefully they can at least get the Indian authorities can arrest those scammer artists out there, because they're just again, they're making the world a worse place. And anyway, Mike, why don't we wrap things up? I know we're running pretty late, but any final thoughts on scams?
I would say to anyone who's potentially listening, who thinks that they might be in one, they have a loved one that is in it, or a friend that's in it. And again, in this conversation, we're talking about the facts. So I'm going to be a little bit more bolder than I would to anyone, to anyone that I talk to. But if you know someone in it, you got to remember that people have emotionally bought into something, and you need to deal with that. So if you got to remember that people are hurting. The people in these systems are hurt people that have been taken into the system themselves. And the way to get them out is the opposite of what they use. So a lot of people use fear of either the government, fear of financial hardships, fear of, eating bad foods, or health, fear of being unhealthy, and all these other things. The way to help people is to be there for them and to show them lots of love, compassion, without enabling them. Like, I would never, if someone asked me, Mike, should I join an MLM? I would say, totally no, definitely not. If someone was in it and asked me, what do I think of it? I would show them a lot of grace, and I would ask them questions about it. It's like, well, why are you in this system? What is your goal for getting it? And if your goal is to make passive income, to build yourself a business, we can have an objective, non-judgmental conversation. If their goal is just to, have some friends and learn some skills and have some fun, that's, and you're getting that, then that's okay. And so if people, and confronting people is not the way out. I actually used to believe in conspiracies, a lot of them. And the thing that brought me out and to see more rational ways of thinking was because people gave me time. They didn't judge me. They didn't hate me and separate from me. They were just there for me. And they waited until I got to a spot where mentally I was able to saying, hey, I need some help. I need some help to make their way out. And that's the only way, is I think is to put people's first, and to not judge people, but be very real with the facts, and that. And so that's what I would say to people, is use lots of love and people, and connect with people. Because if people are isolated, those are the people who are most vulnerable to these things.